Welcome back, everyone, for another edition of Conquer the Cave. I am Doa, back with Charmer. Welcome back. It was great to have Xander sit in and do some casting with me, but I'm happy that the original co-host is back here of Conquer the Cave. How you doing? I know you had a little bit of a rough vacation. I don't want to open any recent wounds or anything like that, but I'm glad you're back safe and sound, Charmer.
I guess we'll save the longer story for when we return to the normal broadcast. So for this,
smart.
I'll just say it was both very good and very bad, and it took a lot longer to recover from than I originally intended. But the good news is I am finally home and healthy at the right time, because we are kicking off our new set, and I'm really excited for that. But also, I'm just really excited to cover games once again. So I'm really jacked to see what happens here for Conquer the Cave, is kind of like a send-off before we see the new stuff.
Yeah, this is our last Conquer the Cave before set 3 comes in. We've got a little bit of a delay where I'm giving about a week for people to kind of brew some lists and all that kind of stuff. But we should be back, I think, next week with our first set 3 episodes. So that should be really, really fun. Set 3 has launched as of a couple days ago, but we are here recording the tail end of set 2, and it's going to be a good one too. We've got our new reigning champion. That's right, Raynous came in, knocked out T-Bird after a couple weeks. Not a bad run. That's the longest we've had so far, is 2 weeks in a row. Now Raynous going for his second win. His opponent, though, coming in, DaveyJones, another common face in the, or at least common name, I guess you see in the Discord server. By the way, join the Discord if you haven't. But let's jump right into the deck list, because I'm very excited about this one, Charmer, and here's why. Because Raynous has decided to bring Jabba the Hutt for his second match. I believe he played, oh man, why am I forgetting? I think he played Han 2 last week. I can't remember, but I'm having this mental lapse for some reason with that. Good thing I'm not running for president or anything. But we have him bringing Jabba this week instead. Jabba Cunning. So, maybe a more control-y sort of vibe with this. But you yourself have played a lot of Jabba. What do you think about this list? Is this close to what you were running with Cunning, or is this a little bit different?
This is close, but it does have some differences. I love Jabba. I played him both with Cunning and Aggression. I think that the Aggression one ended up performing better, but the big reason that I loved Cunning is because your flip turn when you hit 7 resources is outstanding. Typically, you're either playing Jabba's Rancor alongside a Jabba or Dryden Voss, allowing you to just go way ahead on board. So I'm a little surprised to see just the 2 Dryden Vosses in this list, as opposed to 3 and then a 2 and 2 split on Maul and Vader. That tells me that they're, I think, just going to focus a bit more on ensuring that they always have an answer before their flip turn, because you've got both Vader and Maul, so that's a lot of ambush on resource turn 7. I will say I was not running Devastator because I felt like that was a bit overkill, and the card that really overperformed for me, and I only see 2 of here as well, was the Reputable Hunter. And the reason that I liked that was just because in both of the Jabba lists, if you are going second and your opponent plays a unit first, then you can get a turn 1, 3, 4. And a lot of times that allows you to snowball and kind of take control of the ground. I do like seeing this 7th Fleet Defender, because again, if you can start with something like a Hunter and then you play that in the space arena, a lot of times, at least early game, that gives you a lot of strong presence in both lanes, and then you can kind of dictate the pace of the game. But overall, not a lot of differences. You got a healthy amount of guard to help you survive the early game, and then support in the form of No Good to Me Dead, Waylay, things like that, to ensure that anything that is somehow bigger than your units or that catches you off guard, you can just slow the pace down until you can find an answer.
I think this is the most indecisive list I've ever seen brought to Conquer the Cave. There are so many 2-ofs, and that scares me, right? I worry about consistency a little bit with this list. The other thing that struck me, and I'm going to echo you on this, where I feel like there's not going to be a lot of games where you get to Devastator. I feel like I would rather see maybe a couple Forloms in there, something to sort of shore up the mid game, because we are in a meta where there's a good amount of aggression and mid-rangey kind of stuff. So between that and the 2 drops, I am a little bit concerned about this one, but we will see what his opponent DaveyJones is bringing. Are you ready? It is going to be,
yeah, I'm ready.
It's going to be Double Aggression Bo-Katan. All right. Now, this was a list. I believe this is either identical or very similar to a list that was kind of making some waves towards the like 75% of the set 2 being done. It was around then. And it seemed to be pretty good. We had someone in our Discord that was like claiming that this was the best list. They had gotten a lot of success with it at locals, at some showdowns. I always wanted to play it, but I just never had time to put it together and do it. So I'm glad we're getting a chance to see it here.
I like what this list is trying to do.
Yeah.
I will say the thing that jumps out to me is only 2 Fang fighters in the main deck. As weird as it sounds, I think that right now, that being a 3 of makes an awful lot of sense if you're a heavy Mandalorian, because it is a Mandalorian out in space, so it can get buffs from the Darksaber, and it can trigger a bunch of other stuff while being, you know, usually a little more safe out in space. That card has just overperformed for me whenever I play Bo-Katan, but the rest of this, I'm just going to be honest, I'm in love with it. This is everything I love from the double aggression lists. The actual legendary card aggression is outstanding, has been for a long time. Bo-Katan is a fantastic unit, a really strong 2-drop. Being able on turn 1 to pretty consistently play something like Set 1 Sabine or Ketsu or Bo-Katan, all of those are such good opening plays that immediately put a lot of pressure on your opponent. So I'm very excited to see this in action.
Yeah, it looks like it does a lot of damage quickly, but then again, Jabba's kind of well situated to handle that. That Salacious Crumb's very annoying to deal with, so this one could kind of go either way. I'm curious to see who's going to end up on top with it, but we'll find out. The question is, again, is Raynous going to be able to take a second win in a row, or will DaveyJones conquer the cave? And which is interesting, because DaveyJones, I suppose, rising up from the depths of the ocean to live in a cave. Why not? You know, change of pace is good once in a while. But speaking of a change of pace, let's get into the game. Here we go. Can you see everything okay?
I can.
All right. Well, on your left, you have none other than the challenger here, DaveyJones, playing Tarkin Town with this Bo-Katan aggression list. And on the right, we have our reigning champion, Raynous. You can see that because the crown is on Jabba's head up there, right? With the command cunning as well. And to be clear too, there was an issue with the recording on DaveyJones' side where it's going to be very slideshow and the resolution isn't quite as good as we would hope. It sounds like everything was good in the test recordings, and then once they did the real recording, when he went back and looked, it ended up like this. So not sure what happened there, but yeah, we'll make it work. We'll be able to kind of see what's going on. So it looks like it is going to be DaveyJones going first, putting down that Ketsu Onyo.
Ketsu is a really strong opener, if only because it's got Saboteur, good aggressive stat line. It's a little less impactful against Jabba. It's a card that is outstanding against decks like Rey, for example, or anything where they're going to have that additional experience tokens, so stuff like Tarkin. But here you're just going to start with Ketsu, and it's going to get answered by our Cloud ambusher there.
Yeah. Oh, boop. See, she disappeared. So that, I guarantee you there was a hand that reached in and grabbed that card during that case. But like I said, bit of a slideshow, but we can follow along. At least it's synced up anyway. So Cloud Rider, going in and clearing things. And
DaveyJones actually didn't touch it with their hand. They used the Force.
Wow. DaveyJones. Impressive challenger here. And it looks like we're going to regroup, I would imagine. I don't think there's really anything else either player could do. So looks like, Raynous on our right deciding what card to resource. Can be a tough choice, especially with the amount of 2-ofs in that deck too, right? Where it's like, if you know you only have one more coming and you don't know where it is in your deck, sometimes that makes those resource decisions really difficult.
You know, it's interesting that you brought that up, because a lot of the reasons that I was kind of eyeballing those 2-ofs was many of them were situational. And so here we're going to see Super Laser Technician, aka DJ Death Star, come down.
That's right.
The reason I liked a lot of the 2-ofs is because they weren't the sort of thing that you wanted to draw all the time. I will say there were a number of cards that also had Smuggle. So I noticed there was a 3-of on the Blaster, for example, right? And that makes sense, because not only do you want to resource that, but also you are saving yourself those decisions for your other 2-ofs. I don't know if it's just slow. No, we're going into the resource 4. So on Davy Jones's side, as far as I know, they just had that spec force that they played last turn, and that might be a misstep.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's all they could do. So maybe they hand a little bit dead for Davy Jones right now. Just played the spec force operative, took initiative, and so we'll see if they have a better answer this time around. Resourcing right now, looks like. And then we'll see what pops onto the board. Waiting for it. I did look. I did scrub far enough into this when I was editing the VOD together that things are synced up at least. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be 2 into base from the Spec Force operative, and that's first damage on base. Meanwhile, there's I would imagine the trade. Yeah, trade into the Spec Force there. 5 resources for Raynous, and man, with the board of Davy Jones, I'm a little bit worried here.
Yeah, this is not where you want to be if you are Davy, if only because
Bo-Katan.
You can deploy something here. It's going to be a Bo-Katan, but Raynous with 5 resources can potentially. Ooh. Wow, we're going to go all the way up to 6 with a resupply. I was going to say could play 2 things and set up something like an overwhelming barrage.
Yeah,
but this is getting you to a flip turn for Jabba next turn if necessary, and never mind even the capture part. Jabba is a huge body, and that Bo-Katan list does not have a way to get him off the board.
I kind of love this, actually, right? Where he's like, all right, well, your aggressive deck really isn't able to be aggressive right now. There's initiative claimed by Davy Jones. So on Raynous' side, yeah, why not? And he's going to throw down the Salacious Crumb as well, heal for 1. And I would say Raynous in a great spot right now coming into this Jabba flip turn. I guess the big question for me is, is presumably stealing the Bo-Katan going to be, worth it, right? Is he going to get much value off of flipping Jabba? I guess you could just not flip Jabba until you have a good reason to, too. That's also an option, but Jabba's got a big body, So sometimes it's nice to have that out there with aggro.
I mean, the interesting thing here is that you can also give the bounty and then flip Jabba if they don't get rid of your Salacious Crumb.
For sure.
Having that 7 resources, though, as well here, you have things like Rancor available. So you could play Jabba's Rancor and then just nuke the Bo-Katan.
True. Yeah. I don't mind that. Bounce the Salacious Crumb to safety first.
I mean, there's a lot of options here, right? Because we know that Darth Vader is a play. We know that Darth Maul is a play.
Yeah.
Excuse me, it's just Maul. It's the Underworld Maul, not Darth Maul.
Just Maul. We do not grant him the rank of Darth. It's going to be 3 damage coming in from Bo-Katan. And I think that's probably wise, too, because you're going to need to get aggressive, right? And so, okay, yeah, he is just going to, looks like, bounce the Salacious Crumb. I believe there's probably going to be a damage coming in on Bo-Katan then.
Yeah, Bo-Katan's the only target. And I like this play from Raynous. Even if you're going to end up capturing that or doing something else to it, like play the Rancor, what you're doing there is you are, 1, returning the Salacious so that you can heal later if needed, but also you're stalling, right? Bo-Katan still has a bunch of unspent resources. You'd like to see them play something else and then adapt as needed, right? If they play a bigger unit, then if you have something like a Maul, you could run into that. It does look like we're going to get a Cassian here, and I believe that was from Smuggle based on the number of resources. Yeah, enters ready.
That's correct. Yeah, smuggling that out, comes in ready. That was another resupply on Raynous' side, by the way. So just really being like, all right, yeah, I can afford to take 3 more damage here from the Cassian Andor. I'm going to play something massive soon. There's another Salacious Crumb, so going down back to 6 life or 6 damage rather on base. So the board building for Davy Jones a little bit, but Raynous has so many resources. I guess the big question now is, does he have something big to play, or is that hand maybe like another Cloud Rider or another Salacious Crumb or something? I'm starting to get a little bit concerned because we didn't see like anything big come out yet, but we'll see.
Well, the thing is even if their hand is lackluster here, they're at so many resources that unless they're trying to play a Devastator, they could also just not resource this turn and play anything else in their deck.
Yeah, very true.
Right? So their hand can really jump up in size, and I do think, that's what's happening, right? No resource going down, and that makes sense because unless you're trying to play a Devastator, you can play everything else.
Yeah, they've got 8 resources. Remember, they also have that Jabba flip turn looming too, and you need a unit out there to do the capturing, but at least you've got that going for you. What's the play going to be, though? I think it was initiative for DaveyJones. I believe he's going first, but I could be wrong, too. Trying to remember what happened. Oh, yeah, it was a Salacious Crumb coming down. I think the last, yeah. Looks like it's going to be Cassian Andor. No, Bo-Katan going in for 3 more damage. Up to 9 on base for Raynous. How do you like my new damage counter, by the way? I'm very proud of it.
I enjoy it. I think it looks good. I was just about to say, I'm a little surprised that there is seemingly no respect for this Salacious Crumb.
Yeah, it's annoying that he can keep healing with it, keep pinging with it. Looks like 3 more damage from Andor, so going up to 12 on base now is Raynous, and there's a Greedo. Okay. Where's the big stuff, Charmer? Where's the big stuff? We know there's a Greedo. We know there's a Salacious Crumb in the hand. He's got 3 other cards besides that Salacious Crumb, right? There's got to be something large. Please?
Yeah, I'm wondering myself, because when you look at it from just even a number standpoint, right? We had 2 Dryden Voss, 2 Darth Vaders, 3 Mauls. There's a healthy number of expensive things. We had the Rancor as well. Does look like this Greedo is going to crash into Cassian, I suspect, and then trying to get the trigger, but it looks like it missed.
No, it was the Bo-Katan hero activation that killed the Greedo by doing 1 damage to it. Greedo tried to use the on-defeat ability to get an event to do 2 damage to presumably Bo-Katan, but missed with the refutable hunter. Yeah. And here comes the flip for Bo-Katan, it looks like, as another Salacious Crumb comes down. That's actually going to be back to 11 health on Raynous' base, 11 damage rather. So yeah, playing the Greedo kind of a funny play in retrospect, because that Bo-Katan option to just ping it was there. But,
yeah, I think that it was one of those things where if they don't punish you immediately, part of me wonders if I can see it now. I was going to say, part of me wonders if there is an overwhelming barrage that they were trying to set up, because if they don't have their big units, then they're sitting on some of their utility, right? And in my head, I was trying to think about, all right, what are the cards that you would not have wanted to have played thus far, but are worth sitting on? And Barrage makes sense, because on a Crumb, it's usually like not that impactful. Now, I do think that perhaps last turn, instead of bouncing, it might have been still worth it to play the Barrage, get the damage across the other 2 units, and then attack in with a Salacious Crumb just to clean them up. Here we're going to get rid of this Bo-Katan and probably get some more damage on other units. But yeah, that does look like that was what the Greedo was trying to do as well, is just say, hey, if you don't get rid of this right away, then maybe I can clean up Cassian and then buff this outside of the range of death. But unfortunately, DaveyJones clocked it properly and immediately got rid of it.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. I almost wonder a little bit. Go with me on this one for a second. What if we flip Jabba and like steal Andor, and then you OB Jabba, finish off Bo-Katan and do a little bit of damage to finish off the unit Bo-Katan, do a little bit of damage to leader Bo-Katan. That's a Darksaber going down on Bo-Katan now. And that would have kind of forced the leader to attack into the Salacious Crumb, which would have saved you, which would have bought you a little bit of time, maybe.
I know that you. So here's the thing, and I ran into this quite a bit when I was playing Jabba as well. I know that you always want to make the splashiest play possible when you're playing this leader, but I really do feel like when Jabba ramped all the way up to 7 and it was just the Cassian and the Bo-Katan, that it would have been worth it to flip your Jabba just for the board presence. Because like I said, he's a massive body and you're falling behind on the ground arena. And so being able to play him and then have him just attack into things, clean them up, would have been so much more beneficial for trying to keep your health total afloat. Because the one downside to playing Jabba is that outside of cards like Salacious Crumb, you don't really have a lot of healing. This list in particular, I noticed, does not run Colonel Yularen. That was usually a crutch with me, is that if you can get the pair of them, then you can start really ramping up your healing, because Yularen would trigger every time you played Salacious. But Raynous' list is really got to pay attention to the amount of damage on the base.
Totally, yeah. There were a number of kind of different ways I think you could have slowed down the board a little bit, and that's all we're looking for right now. Is you don't even need to kill those units, right? You just need to slow things down. So, like stealing something to cause a unit to attack into something else instead of your base. 2 damage on the Salacious Crumb there, it looks like. From the Bo-Katan leader, I believe, on attack. Yeah, so doing damage to the base, going up to 19 on that. That Darksaber is kind of terrifying. Yeah, that's a +1/+1 on the Sabine Wren as well. You gotta... Oh, but see, now you're in that situation where it feels extra bad to flip Jabba because that Salacious Crumb is just so close to death already. But at least you could... I mean, you could take the Sabine and remove the +1/+1 counter with that at least.
Yeah, and again, you give yourself the Jabba on the board, which is ultimately, I think, going to be the most beneficial piece here.
Yeah,
that's why I would have liked to have seen it even just a little bit sooner.
Totally agree. Oh, he took the Cassian Andor too. Huh. Interesting. Okay, so Andor is the unit stolen by Salacious Crumb. By the way, shout out to both of our players for getting the ground units on the right side, on the correct side to match up. They're learning.
That's so interesting that the Cassian was picked. I don't know what you would have in hand if you are Raynous that makes that a better choice.
Right, because you know they're going to just get it back, and so at least you could have removed the +1/+1 from the Bo-Katan. Yeah. A little bit rough situation for Raynous right now. You know, we know he's got some big units out there, so there's still that chance, you know, that maybe just maybe.
It's also funny because earlier I was saying, like, I don't know why you would ever want to play a Devastator, but Bo-Katan with a Darksaber is like one of the few times where you really want that Devastator.
Hey, now you do. Now you do want it.
Now you do.
Yep. It looks like it was Tarkin Town that was used to take out the Salacious Crumb, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, no good to me dead. I would imagine that's going to go on the Bo-Katan. Yeah, it certainly will. But that's still, you know, you're still looking at 4 damage from the Sabine Wren, 3 damage from the Andor. That's 7 more. You're going to be close to death here after this turn, just by virtue of what's on the board right now.
Yeah, and that's why I think it was so critical to flip that Jabba sooner. Again, I know you want the big flashy play, but I think that sometimes people over prioritize like the capture portion and forget that just getting a 12 health unit on the ground to help fight for stuff is also totally fine.
Totally agree. Overwhelming barrage on Jabba now. He had another one in his hand, and I think now we're kind of seeing too a little bit of what would the issue was earlier, is that maybe those 2 overwhelming barrages have been sitting in there for a long time. Hard to say. Looks like all 4 damage are going to go into the Sabine. But it's
the start for Raynous looked great. It really did look like they were getting ready to ramp into one of those really key, powerful 7-cost units, and then we just never saw them. So I do think you might be correct. We were probably sitting on that pair of overwhelming barrage, just waiting to draw one of your big units, and then we didn't. No Rancor, no Dryden, no Maul, no Darth Vader, and that is just wild to me.
Yeah, I think it's one of those situations where, you know, you just, and, you know, maybe we got to go back to that conversation where there's a lot of 2-ofs in that deck too. And that does certainly reduce the consistency as far as how often you'll see cards in a given game. And I wonder if that came back to bite Raynous a little bit. Yeah, it looks like that's going to be game 1. Being more or less conceded. I mean, it was going to be over momentarily anyway, but DaveyJones, I would say coming from behind a little bit there, but Raynous not having the cards. You know, maybe Jabba coming out a little bit too late. He's slow, so you can forgive him for that. Jabba, you know, it takes a lot of effort to move that body around. So either way, DaveyJones takes the win in game number 1. Welcome back to Conquer the Cave for game number 2 here between DaveyJones on the Double Aggression Bo-Katan Kreese and Raynous over on the Command Cunning Jabba the Hutt. 2 cool decks, 2 really interesting builds that we don't see a lot of. But again, I'm glad that we're getting something fun and unique for our very last set 2 episode of Conquer the Cave.
Yeah, I am as well, because I just really like Jabba and I really like Bo-Katan. These have both been, you know, pet decks of mine in the past, and I'm happy that we get to see them face off. I'm really hoping we get a little bit of a splashier game here. Perhaps Raynous will draw some of that late game. I know you were mentioning the 2-ofs earlier, but it was just really interesting to me because even with the two ofs, right? When you do the math, it was 3 Rancors, I believe, 3 Mauls, 2 Darth Vaders, 2 Drydens.
Yeah.
So that's 10 out of your 50 cards, right? That's
Yeah.
20% of your deck, and we didn't see any of them.
Yeah, that is. I do think there was kind of some unfortunate draws going on there for Raynous as well. So now the question is, can you, if you run into that situation again, can you stall long enough to live, so you get that stuff out later? It's going to be a Sabine Wren OP border from set number 1 as we go to our second turn here. Looks like it's going to be the 7th Fleet Defender for Raynous as well. So getting a little bit of power in the air there.
Yeah, this is something that I was talking about before, where you do want to, traditionally anyway, have presence in both areas. But right now, the ground is very solidly controlled by DaveyJones here. We have the Sabine, and then with the neutral Mandalorian coming down, we get that experience token on the Sabine again. And that's going to be a lot of pressure in the ground arena.
It is already, actually, isn't it? It's kind of scary. And he's going to use the Bo-Katan leader ability to remove the shield on the 7th Fleet Defender. Really nice usage of that there as we go back to the regroup phase. But man, already. And this is, again, when I looked at Raynous' list too, this is why I would have loved to see like some Forloms in there or something, right? Just something to shore up the mid game a little bit. You can ambush, trade in, still have the unit alive. Sure, Bo-Katan can ping it in the case of Forlom, if something's attacked already. But just to be able to remove a unit, to take that damage off of the board, to give yourself time to get that big stuff, I'd like to see a little bit of that.
I would as well. I also would have liked to have seen what happens if Raynous would have had the reputable Hunter opener, where you get that 3/4 on turn 1, because that again helps you really fight for control of that ground. But so far it's been all DaveyJones in game 2 in the ground arena, and Raynous I don't think has a good play here, because there's a lot of kind of hemming and hawing about what to do.
Yeah, looks a little bit rough. I kind of wonder if maybe, Raynous, if there's like kind of a Captain Jack Sparrow situation going on here. He made like a deal with DaveyJones like decades past, and now it's coming due, and you can run, you can hide, but there's no escaping DaveyJones. I'm a little bit concerned.
Yeah, that very well could be.
Might be the case.
For sure.
I think, I don't want to, I don't want to assume too much, but I'm just using the evidence that's in front of me. No good to me dead.
So I was going to say we have the no good to me dead, but what was
Sabine.
that? I was going to say, it's got to be used on the Sabine, right? It's just the slideshow had not yet updated.
Yeah, I've just been, I'm precogging this one, right? I'm trying to predict the future, and it's Sabine made sense as kind of the only choice there. Now, the 7th Fleet Defender did get 3 damage in on the base of DaveyJones, which is 3 more damage done to the base than happened in game 1, unfortunately. Oh, here comes aggression, though. So I think that 7th Fleet Defender is probably going to be out of there. And then what else is it going to be? I'm trying to remember the options on aggression. I haven't used this card in so long. I know you can do damage. Now you can draw cards. So I see him reaching for cards.
4 damage to a unit. You can draw a card. You can ready a unit that has 3 or less attack power.
Yeah. You could ready the Sabine then, couldn't you?
You could. Yes, you could. I was just about to say, even though it's not supposed to like ready again during the regroup phase because of the no good to me dead, you could ready it manually with an effect. Yeah. So that might have.
That's exactly what happened, I think.
Yeah.
Because you see 3 more damage being done. Although if it'd be more, or maybe he did it to the Mandalorian warrior then.
Yeah, I was about to say it should have been 4 damage because of the trigger. So I do think that might have just been a missed opportunity, but
maybe let me look up no good to me dead real quick here, because I'm pretty sure you could ready it, but then when you attacked with it, it just still wouldn't ready your next turn.
Yeah, exactly. So the no good to me dead text is just that it's exhausted, but then it can't ready this round, right? So when you go to
Oh, can't.
Oh, well, no, it's the text that you can't ready this round, so you can't ready it
Oh yeah, you couldn't do it, including during the
at
regroup
all,
phase. Okay, yeah.
including during.
I
Yep.
see. Like I knew what the card did, but I didn't remember the exact wording because again, not a card I've used for a while.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess you can't ready it. Okay, so never mind. I was wrong on that one. I figured you just couldn't. I thought it was like can't ready at the start of round text or something. But no, the text is the unit
For
can't
whatever
ready
reason
this
was
round.
I was on the same page as you. I thought it was that it just does not ready during the regroup. But
Yeah. Clearly a card that it's like we know what it does, but we haven't actually read it for a long time. There's going to be more and more of that in this game as more sets come out. But today I relearned. That's a timely intervention in the discard pile now for Raynous. I'm curious how it got there. If he's playing it and then just deciding, or okay, and then we see an upgrade put on the Mandalorian Warrior. That's an XP, right?
Is that? Because that looks, unless I'm missing it here, I think that might be a dark saber.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Never mind. Yeah, look at the sticker down at the bottom. That is the dark saber. Yeah.
I was gonna say that looks like a +4/+3 to me.
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that is a big
7 damage.
Mandalorian.
He's a Mandalorian warrior. But yeah, like we said, we're kind of fighting through some tech issues on this episode, so we'll follow things the best we can. But you don't need to see things perfectly to see that Raynous is once again in some pretty big trouble right now.
Yeah, this is again one of those times where you wish you had a waylay or some of those other options. Now this would be a great time. We're hitting the magic number.
Right.
This would be a great time for that flip turn. Ideally, what you would want to do here would be something like play a Rancor with the initiative and use the Rancor to deal damage and essentially defeat the Sabine. You would eat an attack at that point.
Okay.
But then you could flip your Jabba and have the Rancor capture the other unit.
Sure. You do have a Bosk.
Instead, though, does look like Bosk is going to clean up Sabine.
Yeah. One of those good mid-rangey kind of ambush bounty hunters that Jabba has access to. And yeah, I feel like that's really kind of where a lot of Jabba's strength lies, is these mid-range ambushing bounty hunters. Forlom, Bosk, then being able to use things like Relentless Pursuit to capture some of these smaller units and give yourself a shield. That combo, I think, is really good to have in a list like this.
Yeah, I was going to say the biggest problem here, though, is that this effectively shut down your capture, because you're going to get a big swing of damage in. And then even if you wanted to flip your Jabba, you can now activate Bo-Katan to clean up the Bosk, because you got an attack in with the... And I do think that we're going to see that happen, because it does at least clean up the dark saber, which is better than nothing. But you just don't have the same level of value that you would have had if that was a Jabba's Rancor coming down, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you can kind of think of it as like he killed a 4/3 unit, you know? That's damage that won't appear. But of course, he's going to get the Mandalorian warrior right back. And Bo-Katan, let's see, we're on 5-6 resources right now. So Bo-Katan's going to flip soon. And Raynous is at 24 damage on base already.
Right. And that's the big problem, because as I said before, other than Crumb, you just don't have a lot of healing in this particular list. Bo-Katan, the unit comes down.
Okay.
But we do still have the leader flip turn and 4 resources available. Man, it would just be backbreaking if Davey were to play something like a Casca and then flip Bo-Katan.
Yeah, that'd be insane. Yeah, I think Raynous, unfortunately, our reigning champion, is in big trouble right now. And that's going to be the Mandalorian warrior taking a couple damage from Jabba the Hutt, it looks like. Looks like he just attacked into that just to soften it up a little bit as we go back to the next regroup phase. And, I feel like Jabba's Rancor could make a difference here.
Yeah, we keep waiting for any of those kind of key big 7 drops, right? But
Yeah.
The Rancor, a little less value right now, just because I believe you would have to deal some of the damage to your own Jabba at that point.
Uh-oh.
The Rancor is usually best played on an empty board.
Yeah. And that is more or less it, because that was a precision strike, which is going to take him to 29 via the attack from the Bo-Katan Kryze. And that means just one more damage here. Yeah, Jabba's just going to go in and strike at that. But I believe Bo-Katan can flip this turn now. So you'd imagine, unless Raynous has a way to deal with that immediately. Oh, and there's a daring raid from hand. Okay. Frozen. So we can take a good long look at it there. And that's going to finish off the game. 2 damage to base, which is going to take Raynous to 31, which is more than the health on his base. So it's unable.
Dryden.
Yeah, Dryden Voss, Maul, Devastator. It was all there. It just wasn't there exactly when he needed it. And tragic turn of events for our reigning champion, Raynous. But we got a new champ in town now. DaveyJones has come to claim your soul. Well, maybe it's not that serious. He just won a game of Star Wars Unlimited. But either way, he's a new champion here on Conquer the Cave. Congratulations. Congrats to Raynous on his 1-week win streak. And let's go back to us to talk about that one a little bit. Well, short and sweet this week, I guess, as the Bo-Katan just kind of running Jabba over there.
DaveyJones is trading his locker for a cave. He has officially moved in. We'll see how long his residency lasts. But again, I was just really excited to see both lists. The Jabba list obviously struggled a bit when it was supposed to kind of seize control of the game. I will say that was not that uncommon for me when I played the Cunning version. I ultimately settled on, I felt like red-green Jabba just ends up being a bit more consistent. If you're wondering why red-green is, in my opinion, more consistent, is because in those earlier turns, you have better options to give you that board presence that we saw Raynous was missing. So for example, the red version, you can run Jango Fett, you can run Chrysanthemum. Both of those, because of your Jabba leader ability, you can take advantage of with the bounty interactions that they have, but they also just have a lot of health, right? And ultimately that's what you want with your Jabba list is prior to your flip turn, you need to play units that are really hard to kill on their own. So again, Reputable Hunter is a great early game drop, but again, Jango, Chrysanthemum, etc., they do a lot more for you. When you play the Cunning version, you don't tend to have the high health units. You do have access to more ambush, right? And as you mentioned, we didn't have Forlom there, but we could have. But even then, a lot of times they ambush and then they're left with 1 or 2 health, and then you're still not getting that flip value. So I do think that this was a great showcase of why that can be exploited, especially by more aggressive lists.
Yeah. Well, either way, cool to see it being brought to begin with. I'm curious what DaveyJones is going to bring next week now that the reigning champion, but we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be our first set 3 Conquer the Cave, so that is going to be awesome because the meta is wide open at this point. You and I, right after this, are going to do a bunch of deck brewing and some game testing. We'll see what we come up with, and I guess we'll have to wait and see what our players come up with next week on Conquer the Cave. So until then, thanks for watching, everybody. Go to icecaveradio.com, sign up for our Discord, or just join the Discord and sign up to play in Conquer the Cave. And you too can potentially be on the show and become a champion down the road. Play some games, have fun, and we'll see you next time.